Hello, my name is Rebecca Barnes. I'm a writer, and on this channel, I make videos about my writing, my reading, and my journals. The world is a crazy place. Always has been, I guess. Seems particularly crazy right now, I think that's fair to say. And the best way to deal with anything is to escape. What better escapism than that which you had as a child? Today's video, we're going to be rereading Warrior Cats 14 years later as an adult. I was inspired to make this video because I keep getting remember who you are, weird animal girl, or remember who you are, weird cat girl posts on my Instagram. And I was just thinking about that a lot, and I was like, how do I reconnect with that version of myself? Because I was so optimistic and hopeful, and I could use some of that right now. And so the thing I thought of that defined my childhood was warrior cats. I read all of the warrior cats that were available around the time that I was like probably like 10 through 12, okay? 9 through 12 maybe. They were everything to me. You know, I was one of those little girls who would run around outside, not at recess because I was homeschooled. So I didn't have recess, but I would run around outside and pretend like I was a fierce warrior. And I came up with a whole clan of my own and came up with their names and like backstories. And like it was such a big deal to me and such a big part of my desire to write and my belief that I could because of how invested I was. I was like, I can totally invest myself like this into my own stories someday. So I hugely credit Warrior Cats with being a starting point of my writer journey. And yeah, I can say that like it's weird to be a child running around outside pretending you're a cat. I get it. It was weird. I was weird, but I was free, you know? I do not wish to continue to run around outside pretending I'm a cat again in my life. As fun as it was, I think I can leave that behind. So I do want to reconnect with my curiosity and joy that I got from engaging with warrior cats when I was a kid. And I think that like truly the more genuine people are, the better place the world is. And I want to say this is a safe space. So, all of that being said, I actually don't own any Warrior books. I never have. I got all of my copies that I read from the library. However, I would like to own them as a memorial object. I'm going to be going to a couple of used bookstores to look for Warrior Cats books. And I'm going to be looking for the old copies. Um, so they redesigned them and have like a different art for the covers now, which is like, you know, of course, still a very beautiful art style. The cats are very beautiful, but if I can find them, I would really prefer to have the old editions because those were the ones that I read growing up, and so it's nostalgic for me. So those are the ones we're going to be looking for. Going to be an adventure to see. And with that, let's go to the bookstore.
I don't know if I can find my way out. I'm stuck in a prison of doubt. In this tiny shell, and everything is growing up tight. There's no room to breathe, and nobody is watching at night. I wanna rise up.
I just made it back home after shopping. Now let's get into the book haul. I kind of went a little crazy. So I accidentally walked right to the warrior cat section. Like I walked in and I was like, okay, I'm gonna assess and figure out where I need to go. And then I just chose a random aisle to walk down. And then the whole wall was not the whole wall, the whole part of the bookshelf was all warrior cats. And I was so excited. From the original series, I got the original cover for book number 2, Fire and Ice. For book number 4, A Rising Storm. Book number 5, A Dangerous Path. And book number 6, The Darkest Hour. So I just need 1 and 3 to finish out this collection. They were about $5 each. And then I also got some from the New Prophecy. I got the second book, which is Moonrise. Number 3, Dawn. Number 4, Starlight. And number 5, Twilight. So I need 1 and 6 from this series. So those were all the warrior books that I got. Usually when I go into a bookstore, I have the mindset of I am not buying anything. I'm not touching anything. I did not have that mindset this time, and that's why I went a little crazy. Now let's look at the Ann Beattie books I got. I got 3 Ann Beatties. Look at that. That looks so much better. I'm still figuring this out, okay? First Ann Beattie I got is Picturing Will, and then I got the New Yorker stories, and I have The Accomplished Guest. Then I picked up The Power Book by Jeanette Winterson, and then finally an Ursula K. Le Guin collection of fantasy short stories. And yeah, that was all my trusty sardine bag. I'm actually going to end this. No, you're gonna keep watching this video, but I'm gonna stop filming because I'm exhausted and I want to make some food and get comfy and rest. And I didn't even get the first book, so I can't even start reading yet. I'll see you tomorrow. Hello. It's been about 2 weeks since I filmed the first part of this video. I said I wanted to go to the bookstores around my city and find the rest of the copies, but turns out I couldn't find the 4 books that I needed here locally. So I did go ahead and order the rest of them from eBay. I needed to get 4 books, and then I also got the Ultimate Guide as well. They were all $5, including this, which at local bookstores, this was like 15. It ended up being that one of the books that I was waiting for was the very first one in the series, and so I had to wait until I received them in order to begin making the second part of the video, which is reading this book. I'm so excited to start reading it. I was reading through um the Ultimate Guide a little bit and just remembering how it felt to read these all for the first time. I love this cover. It's so pretty, and all the cute little cat faces. Sweet yellow fang. Anyway, part 2. Let's read some warriors. I need coffee, so let's go to a cafe and begin reading Warrior Cats. Let's talk about the epilogue. I read the epilogue. I have 1 bookmark so far, and I don't believe I read the epilogues when I was a kid, which is kind of funny. The epilogue has 2 scenes in it. One is of Tiger Claw and other Thunder Clan cats fighting with River Clan River Clan cats at Sunning Rocks. And then it switches to Blue Star and Spotted Leaf. And I want to talk about this chapter and how it sets up the rest of the story. So, first of all, obviously, as the audience, we are experiencing this story through the perspective of Rusty, who does not know this world, much like the reader. But I think that what I like about this prologue is that it sets up where we're going to be going with Rusty. So we have just a little bit more context than he does, and we can kind of begin to dream about where the story might take us. So the section with Tiger Claw, I thought this section was really good because it kind of shows Tiger Claw as being very ambitious. They're fighting and he doesn't want to leave, but it also shows that he is still like obedient to Redtail, who's the deputy. So he's still obedient to his superior within the clan at this point in the story. And so, yeah, I think this just like really compelling introduction to who will become the villain of the story as someone who's ambitious but still respects the hierarchy of the clan, even as he is very angry. We also see that he's very violent, so he gets scratched across his muzzle and he just does not care. He is still ready to fight. So, yeah, I thought that was such a great opening section to start it from the perspective of the villain. Amazing. Obviously, you don't know he's a villain yet, but you can kind of see these tendencies that his character has. And then we switch over to Blue Star and Spotted Leaf having a conversation. And so this section introduces the concept of leaders a little bit. That's kind of not the focus, but mainly like Medicine Cats and Star Clan. They are talking about how there's not enough warriors in the clan and how that's worrying Blue Star. And then they switch to Spotted Leaf says, "Are you asking Star Clan for answers?" And Blue Star responds, "It is at times like this we need the words of ancient warriors to help us. Has Starkland spoken to you?" And so I think that's a good introduction to something that, again, like will become a very important part of the story. And the "we need the words of ancient warriors to help" is pretty on the nose, but it's such a huge concept that I feel like it needs to be stated plainly to start out so that as the story progresses and you'll start to explore these ideas in differing levels of complexity. So just having like that basic definition of what StarClan is early in the story, I think is a good decision, even though it is a little maybe over explanatory. And then we have the amazing iconic line, "Fire alone can save our clan." And then I did want to read a line here, going back to Tiger Claw really quick. He gets his nose scratched, and then it says, "Blood was welling around his broad black muzzle, and he shook his head impatiently, scattering scarlet drops onto the rocks." I think it's just such like a beautiful line, and I think that it tells you so much about Tiger Claw. Impatient, scattering scarlet drops is just like beautiful. Scattering scarlet drops. I love the way that sounds. Really good word choice. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that line because I think that it was an example of the Erins working at the height of their power for the introduction. Now I'm just gonna continue reading the book and I will see you whenever I have another update. I was able to read just like a few pages because I was a little busy yesterday. But today we're gonna sit down, we're gonna lock in, and we're gonna read. To accompany me, you saw me preparing my little plate of strawberries and mango. Very excited to eat that. And then I just have some water, ice cold water, in my cute little tumbler here. Let's get reading. Hello, welcome back to another day of reading Into the Wild by Erin Hunter. I am about a little under halfway through the book, and I just wanted to give you a little update. I have included some bookmarks of things that I had forgotten about or just thought were interesting. So I wanted to go through some of those with you right now. I really loved the introduction between Grandpa and Rusty. I thought that was so cute. Yeah, I guess I don't have much to say there. Oh, one thing that I had forgotten is how much emphasis was placed on the idea of Rusty being neutered. I knew that they, like, had talked about that, but I didn't remember it being, like, kind of a primary motivation for Rusty to decide to join the clans. And, like, the fact that Blue Star was like, "You're gonna be castrated, bro," was crazy. I did not remember that part. Or, maybe I was just a kid and so I didn't, um, understand, I guess, like, how crazy that is. Another thing that I had forgotten about was the term sharing tongues. I don't know, it's a weird phrase and I think it's funny and there is something like strangely comforting about it. I was like, sharing tongues. I had forgotten about that phrase. So, as far as the plot goes, I am at a point in the story when Firestar has begun his warrior training and he is now learning how to hunt. He just finished his first observed hunt with Tiger Claw and Lionheart. And so now he's like, I'm a real member of the clan. And he's feeling really good about himself. Now they're waiting to go on a patrol with Blue Star and go put Shadow Clan in their place, basically. Like a quarter of the way through. But we're gonna go do some more reading and see how far we can get today. Let's get out of this apartment and go read about cats killing each other in the Firepaw thought for a moment about last night, sleeping in a damp den. He thought about Mouse Bile and clearing away Yellowfang's dirt, and trying to please both Lionheart and Tigerclaw at once during training. He remembered the teasing he suffered about his kitty pet blood. Then he remembered the thrill of his first catch, of charging through the forest in pursuit of a squirrel, and of warm evenings beneath the stars, sharing tongues with his friends. I know who I am now, he meowed simply. Welcome to the final portion of this video. I have about 60 pages left of Into the Wild. I'm really excited. Before we get reading, I wanted to give you a little update where I'm at with the plot, and I have some bookmarks again that I want to discuss with you. So I think last time I checked in, we left off right after Yellowfang was found by Tigerpaw and brought into ThunderClan. I love that part. I really love Yellowfang. She's such a interesting character, especially, knowing her background from her Super Edition. So since then, Firestar, Greypaw, and Ravenpaw went to the gathering for the first time, where Ravenpaw was telling the story of how the whole Redtail Oakheart Tiger Claw battle went and how that story doesn't really line up with what Tiger Claw had told the clan and what Firepaw believed. Yes, and then also in this scene we saw that Tiger Claw is suspicious of Firepaw, and then Broken Star says that there's a Shadow Clan cat who was kicked out who might be dangerous to kits, and then the Thunder Clan cats rushed home and they were going to harm Yellowfang, but Blue Star stopped them. After that scene, Blue Star, Tiger Claw, Firepaw, Greypaw, and Ravenpaw go to the Moonstone. So in this scene, Tiger Claw is scared. So it says, even Tiger Claw seemed unsettled by the black hole ahead of them. How will we find our way in such darkness? He asked. And then Firepaw smelled Tiger Claw's fierce scent growing until it became overpowering. Firepaw felt startled. Could the warrior see something else here? Something dangerous? He saw a flash of movement, felt fur rush past him, and heard the fleeing paw steps of Tiger Claw racing back to the entrance. I love how powerful Star Clan is and how even the super powerful cat who is so unafraid in his life and he's doing evil things and doesn't seem to be particularly anxious about being caught. He's mostly just angry. He's angry with Raven Paw that he might out the secret, but he doesn't seem like afraid of that happening. But he is afraid of StarClan and of this darkness. And as I was reading this section, I was wondering, like, is Tiger Claw afraid of StarClan, or is he afraid of being there with Blue Star? And one thing that I kept thinking about was like, if you are going into this place where there's these ancestor spirits who guide you and watch over you, and by all appearances and knowledge, they kind of are omniscient, maybe not fully omniscient, but they definitely know a lot of things that regular cats don't. From Tiger Claw's perspective, like, do you think he would be afraid to be found out that maybe StarClan was going to reveal something to Blue Star about him? Or do you think it was more that Tiger Claw is afraid of facing those StarClan cats like on his own? If he were to have a dream of StarClan, would they confront him about the evil things that he's done? So that's kind of just what I was thinking about as I was reading the section. Like, I think that Tiger Claw's fear was written about in such a tangible way. I was just exploring like different things in my head of like what he could be scared of. So let me know what you think of this section, what you think Tiger Claw is so afraid of. Blue Star says, I think Tiger Claw was surprised by the power of the Moonstone. In the world above, Tiger Claw is a fearless and mighty warrior. But down here, where the spirits of StarClan speak, a cat needs a different kind of strength. Which is true, but I think like there's more to it for Tiger Claw because obviously he is breaking the code and killing people and like plotting evil things. So I think it's a little more complicated than that. And then Blue Star has a dream from StarClan that the ThunderClan camp gets attacked. They go by Barley's farm and get into a fight with some rats. Okay, and I'll read a section from this rat fight that illustrates some of the fighting writing, which for me is the least interesting part of Warriors. I think like the motivations of the cats and like all that is definitely the most interesting for me, but I still enjoy the fighting scene. My brain doesn't like process the tactile scenes as well as like the emotional social scenes. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, I still wanted to read this to you because I think it's a good section. Firepaw slashed fiercely with his claws, slicing out at a rat that held onto his leg. It let go, but another one gripped his tail. Fast as lightning, powered by fear and rage, Firepaw fought and hacked at his attackers. Twisting his head around, he sank his teeth into the rat. The head embedded itself into his shoulders. He felt the bones of its neck crunch in his mouth, and its body go limp before it fell away onto the dirt track. That's a section where like now I read and I'm like, I can't believe I was a little child reading this and being like, I mean, it's a cat fighting a rat, so it's not, but it is violent. It is graphic, maybe. I was like, hee hee, cats killing each other and other animals and war and ha. And then Blue Star is killed by the rats, loses a life. Firepaw helps take care of Blue Star because he's been taking care of Yellowfang. So he has some slight medicine cat training. Moments like this, where he's like offering to help other cats, I think really leads into the kind of warrior and leader that Firepaw is going to be someday. He's had experiences of serving others, and I think this is also a good way that he foils Tiger Claw, or Tiger Claw foils him. Who's doing the foiling? I don't know. So we see Tiger Claw, for all this strength and all his boasting and his plotting and his strength, he doesn't take care of other people. He only yells at them, berates them, especially Ravenpaw, his apprentice, who he's supposed to be training and teaching and raising essentially. He's very mean to him and is constantly berating him and putting him down. Yet Tiger Claw wants to be elevated and to become a leader and to have praise and adoration. And I think he wants loyalty. That's a big thing for Tiger Claw. So comparing that with Firepaw, who is always ready to help people and doesn't think himself above doing medicine cat tasks, is one of the traits that turns him into a leader, and the leader that all cats love and respect eventually. Well, kind of. Okay, and then yeah, a bunch of stuff. A bunch of stuff happens basically. After the Shadow Clan cats have attacked the Thunder Clan camp and they're like putting everything back together, Firepaw goes to Spotted Leaf, get some herbs from her, and Spotted Leaf tells Firepaw about the prophecy. She says, Star Clan spoke to me moons ago before you joined the clan. I sense they want me to tell you this now. They said only fire can save our clan. And Firepaw's like, huh? I'm like, dog, your name is literally Firepaw. But I think that actually ties into what I was just talking about, where Firepaw doesn't see himself that way. He's like, what do you mean fire can save our clan? Fire's like a bad thing. His own, it just doesn't even enter his mind to like think of himself as special. And again, I just think that's what makes him such a good leader. Tiger Claw got promoted to deputy. I forgot about that. It's not important at all. Tiger Claw got promoted to deputy because Lionheart was killed. I wonder who did that. Firestar overheard Tiger Claw talking about how he thinks Ravenpaw is a Shadow Clan informant, and so Firepaw now thinks that Tiger Claw is planning on killing Ravenpaw. And he's trying to find an opportunity to talk to Blue Star and tell her. We have just a little bit left. I am on the last chapter, and so I thought it would be fun to do a little live reaction for this section. Ravenpaw told Firepaw that he witnessed Tiger Claw kill Redtail, so it's confirmed for Tigerpaw now that Tiger Claw is evil. Then the kits go missing. They are Frostfur's kits. Yellowfang disappears as well. Tiger Claw whips all the cats into a frenzy of wanting to go kill Yellowfang. Everyone believes that Yellowfang stole the kits to take them and deliver them to Shadow Clan. And so Tiger Claw is saying they need to hunt Yellowfang down and kill her. But Blue Star doesn't want to just kill an innocent cat, and so she sends Firepaw to find Yellowfang and find the truth. She says that Tiger Claw will kill Yellowfang if he finds her without finding out if she was guilty or not. Tiger Claw would kill Yellowfang without question. Firepaw also has to help Ravenpaw escape, and so he helps him make his way to Barley's farm. Then they find Yellowfang in Shadow Clan territory, and she tells them, I didn't take the kits. One of Broken Star's cats did, and I was going to hunt him down and return the kit. And then Tiger Claw's patrol approaches them, and then they go hide in the wet peat to hide their scent. And that's where we are. A lot has happened in the past like 10 pages. Let's read the last little bit. Firepaw, Graypaw, and Yellowfang came up with a plan where Yellowfang would go recruit some old Shadow Clan elders who were put out of the clan by Broken Star to fend for themselves, and Firepaw would go meet up with the Thunder Clan patrol that was hunting for Yellowfang, and they would ambush the Shadow Clan camp together in order to drive out Broken Star and save the kids. And that is exactly what they did. It's interesting how everyone targets Firepaw. Broken Star was like, "This isn't over, apprentice," as he was leaving. And it's like, you were being attacked by 5 different cats. Why are you singling out the baby? Now we're gonna get into the final chapter. So they bring Yellowfang back, and obviously Tiger Claw is very angry about this. And they say, "Oh, she killed Spotted Leaf." And they say, "Look between Spotted Leaf's claws. You'll see that her fur is brown, not gray, because Yellowfang has gray fur." It's interesting. Firepaw really didn't have that many interactions with Spotted Leaf before she died, and then her death like really hits him. And I know that becomes a more important thing later on. I think Spotted Leaf deserved better, deserved a more central role if she was going to be Firepaw's dead first love. Tiger Claw says Ravenpaw might have made a fine warrior. That's so mean, bro. He would have been a much better warrior if he wasn't anxious about being murdered all the time. Also, Blue Star is making Firepaw and Graypaw warriors right now, even though Dustpaw and Sandpaw are like a couple months from the way it's discussed in the book, like a couple months older than them. I would be so mad. But, sometimes I know sometimes it happens, you do something heroic and you get promoted. So good. Okay, I'm gonna read you this final page. Fireheart closed his eyes and recalled the dreams of his kittenhood. The cool forest scents in his nostrils were real now, and the life of a warrior stretched ahead of him. He felt unrestrained joy flood up from his paws and surge through his body. Then he opened his eyes with a jolt. Another pair of eyes was shining back at him from the warrior's den. Tiger Claw! Fireheart stared back without blinking. He was a warrior now. He had made an enemy of the clan's deputy, but Tiger Claw had made an enemy of him. Fireheart was not the same naive cat who had joined the clan all those moons ago. He was bigger, stronger, faster, and wiser. If he was destined to oppose Tiger Claw, then so be it. Fireheart was ready for the challenge. And now we're in the wild. So good. So good. In this video, I set out to determine whether or not Warriors holds up as a good book as an adult with a creative writing degree. What I found is yes, they do hold up. They are good, well written, fun to read books. And I'm so thankful that I have had this opportunity to read these books as a kid and then read them again now as an adult. I think my number one takeaway is that it's always good to seek stories that tell human stories. Good books aren't always the books that are written in a specific style or the books that have a literary or classic, or the reputation of the book doesn't necessarily define how good it is. These are children's books. I think a lot of people would disregard them because of that, but I think that they are incredible and so fun to read and so amazing to have that element of escapism where you're put into this magical world full of fighting cats. But at the end of the day, this is a story of an underdog, an outcast who fights to prove himself and fights to find his own meaning. And it is a story of community, of hardship, of ritual. And I think it's a story that tells you to keep fighting, even when one of your enemies have been granted 9 lives, so they seem practically undefeatable. You can still fight for what's right, and you can still fight for the value of life and protect those who are around you to protect. And I think that message is very important for people to be reminded of at any phase in their life. It's a story that is particularly relevant now. Don't stop fighting. Don't give up on what you believe in because it is difficult or because it feels insurmountable. Do not look at the level of difficulty you might be facing. Instead, look at who you might be protecting because of your bravery. We do not go through life alone. We can only defeat darkness and evilness with close friends and by building trust with other people. You don't change the world by succumbing to it. You change the world by believing that you can and by having something bigger than yourself to fight for. And I think that is a message that is very eloquently spoken and told in Warrior Cats. And so if that's a message you want to hear, I would highly recommend you picking these books up and reading them. One final thing I did want to say about the writing is even though like it is a children's book, like I've said, I don't think that negates its value in any way. As far as the writing goes, I think that there are a few spots that some like slight mistakes or like they'll reuse the same phrase like in two sentences that are right next to each other. Just little things like that. But the way that it's written is the way that it was meant to be written. Like as I read through, I'm doing what I do when I read a lot of books, and that's like, how could this be made better? How could, is this the best sentence they could have used to get their ideas across? And I was surprised at how frequently, like, yes, the answer to that question for Warrior Cats, the way that the Erin Hunters write is absolutely the best way it could have been described. Even when they're describing more complicated things like the fight scenes, which can be like a little confusing just because there's a lot going on, I still think that they word things in the most understandable way possible. And then they also do have, there's a functional kind of aspect to the way that they write, but there's also a lot of really beautiful poetic line that do that thing where they work on the story, but they also just work on me as the reader and on life and on, so many levels. And I think that is a really important mark of good writing is it exists in the story. It has like an applicable meaning on different levels, and I think it does that very well. I did want to address one point because obviously I am giving it a glowing review, and I want to like acknowledge that nostalgia might play a role in how much I love them still. But I will say I have less nostalgia for the original series because I actually started reading the New Prophecy books first. So those are the books that I feel those feelings of nostalgia when I look at the New Prophecy covers and when I think about the New Prophecy story. I did read this when I was a kid, but it just is like I don't have as strong of nostalgia for these books. And I think I can pretty fairly say that, like, sure, nostalgia plays into the way I'm reading the books now, but I still think that they are good, valuable books that if, like, whoever you are, if you like reading, or even if you don't like reading, whoever you are, whatever you like to do, I would highly recommend trying the Warriors books. They're just fun to read and they tell valuable stories and remind you what it means to be human. Even though it's about cats killing each other in the woods. Isn't that crazy? Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to hear more about what I think about warrior cats, I will be making more videos just like this. So please like this video, comment down below, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this or just where you get to hear me yap. I like yapping about books. Hopefully, they will only get better and better as I become more experienced in it. I guess that's all I got. If you made it this far in the video, comment an orange heart emoji so that I know you made it to the end of the video. If you read Warriors as a kid, have you read it as an adult? Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear everything. Bye!